to the motherfucking relay. We're covering today's top boxing news.
Okay, we'll start with this. The ongoing situation between Nina Hughes, the former champion, former WBA champion at bantamweight, and Shernika Johnson, the current reigning champion, and what is the bizarre turn of events that has followed. In a strange turn of events, Nina Hughes has taken to Twitter to highlight an update to her controversial loss to Shernika Johnson on the Lomachenko versus Kambosos undercard. And why so many are calling this a controversy, I don't know, because I saw the fight, I scored the fight, and it seemed to me that Shernika Johnson did enough to win it. The only thing I saw in terms of controversy was the announcer got it wrong. He initially got it wrong. He announced the wrong winner. In that fight, the bout ended initially in a Nina Hughes decision win. Though due to a commentator mix-up, victory for Hughes was short-lived, and the scorecards were read out once again, this time in favor of the Australian fighter, Shernika Johnson. The incident left a bitter taste in the mouths of fans and Hughes' team alike, not least because the fight was for the WBA World Bantamweight title, Nina's title. The loss marked the first on the record of the Essex boxer, whose record now stands at 6-1 following the 94-96, 92-98, and 95-95 scorecards in Johnson's favor. Going into the fight, Hughes was coming off a shutout win over 6-0 Katie Healy, dropping just one round on one of the judges' scorecards. Sugar Neeks, however, was coming off a unanimous decision loss to Ellie Scottney, losing her IBF Super Bantamweight title. She subsequently dropped down to Bantamweight and beat Nina Hughes for hers. Unfortunately, the mistake in announcing the correct winner has affected more than just the fighters, with announcer Dan Hennessy retiring from the sport as a result of worldwide backlash. It was an honest mistake. I don't think he should have retired on that, and I don't think people should have been as hard on him as they were. Granted that it was a mistake, and it was a noticeable mistake on a big stage. Everybody makes mistakes. So Nina Hughes took to her social media and stated, update. The official WBA independent scoring of my controversial fight in Australia, 3 judges to 2 in favor of me as the winner. Just a waiting game now for the rematch, hoping Shernika smashes Jamie Mitchell, and we can run it back for the fans. To set the record straight. So, what seems to have come out from all of this is a round robin of sorts, between Jamie Mitchell, the former champion, Nina Hughes, the former champion, and Shernika Johnson, the current champion. Apparently, Shernika's going to be fighting Jamie Mitchell. Jamie is who Nina Hughes won the belt from. Nina beat Jamie, and Shernika beat Nina. Now, apparently, Shernika's fighting Jamie. What? Despite the fact that the WBA has concluded that 3 out of 5 judges in retrospect scored the fight for Nina Hughes, there is no word anywhere that the decision will be overturned or changed to a no contest. Instead, the WBA has made the decision that Nina Hughes will be the mandatory challenger for the winner of Shernika Johnson's next bout against Jamie Mitchell, allowing Hughes a chance to regain the WBA Bantamweight title. But what does she do while she waits? What does she do in the meantime? That if Shernika is now fighting Jamie Mitchell and she's not going to run it back with Nina straight away, what does Nina do, because she's not getting any younger? So when Nina Hughes decided to leave Matchroom to sign to Lou DiBella Entertainment, and her fight with Shernika was subsequently announced, I warned that's gonna go sideways. Shernika Johnson is not a keep busy fight. She's not a keep busy opponent, least of all in Australia, where she's based out of. She's originally from New Zealand, but she's based out of Australia. She may as well be an Australian fighter. Right. And I warned that Nina Hughes leaving Matchroom for DiBella Entertainment may not be a step forward. That might be a step backwards. 2 steps now, because now you're not a champion anymore. Your first fight under the Lou DiBella Entertainment banner, they made you go to Australia to fight Shernika Johnson, and look what happened. I picked Shernika Johnson to win, and she did. Though as far as controversy, well, the only controversial thing about that fight to me was that the announcer got it wrong at the end of it, but that was it. The right woman won the fight. And I was actually surprised how aggressive Shernika Johnson was in the fight, because I've come to know Shernika as a cerebral fighter, a mover and a boxer, not necessarily a puncher, but she was fighting like a puncher, a pressure fighter, landing straight punches from the outside coming in, backing up and backing off the reigning champion, taking it to her. That Shernika won the fight doesn't seem controversial to me. Just that it took 2 tries to get it right. She won. The silver lining for Nina is that the WBA has so decided to give her a second chance, though how long it's going to take to get that second chance determines the outcome, doesn't it? Because Nina's already several years older than Shernika, and she's not getting any younger.
She'll have to wait until after the Mitchell fight, but when is the Mitchell fight happening?
Shernika's next fight date has not yet been announced. I'd wager that her next fight, maybe it happens on the undercard of a No Limit show, unless she's about to fly to America.
Not a good idea.
There are questions that need answers. When and where will Shernika Johnson be fighting Jamie Mitchell? And how soon will it take the winner of that fight to give Nina Hughes another crack at the apple? We'll see. In men's lightweight news, the betting lines have opened for what could be a Gervonta Davis versus Vasyl Lomachenko fight, and to no one's surprise, Gervonta Davis has opened as a slight favorite going in. He is younger than Vasyl Lomachenko, several years younger, still unbeaten.
Maybe that's because he didn't spend the last couple of years fighting guys like Teofimo Lopez or Devin Haney.
No, he was keeping busy with journeymen like Yuriorkis Gamboa, super featherweights at lightweight, like Hector Luis Garcia.
Retards like Rolly. Nobodies like Isaac. And don't pretend that Isaac was a somebody going into that fight. He was a late replacement and nobody knew him.
When this is what your lightweight resume consists of, it really is that much easier to stay an unbeaten fighter over time, isn't it? Because you're not fighting the Devin Haneys. You're not fighting the Teofimo Lopez's of the world. You're on easy street. You've been on easy street. Only so that after all these years, you're finally ready to fight Vasyl Lomachenko? Gee, I wonder why.
I guess losing 1 or 2 fights and getting older, that had nothing to do with it, right?
And which one of these fighters that Gervonta Davis fought in the lightweight division, which one of them am I supposed to look at as being as good as, say, a Teofimo Lopez? Which one? What? Isaac Cruz? Rolly Romero?
Frank Martin?
You know how it goes. If after all this time the betting lines have opened with Gervonta Davis as a slight favorite, it's because the bookies know what I know and what everybody else knows, that Vasyl Lomachenko is older now. He's getting slower. He's even contemplating retirement. That's what he said after he knocked out George Kambosos, that he's not the fighter now that he once was, and that's the only reason that Gervonta Davis would fight him after all this time.
If he does.
There's no excuse, which puts even more pressure on Gervonta Davis to have this fight. Not just have it, but win it.
Yeah.
A subscriber here on the channel that goes by the name Dubois said Mayweather was 36 when he fought Saul Canelo Alvarez, and nobody said that he was old, and he had 25 more fights than Loma at 36 years old. This cap, and Loma won his last 2 fights.
What's cap? That Gervonta Davis has been putting off this fight for years?
KO'd Kambosos like what? Loma is in his prime. He lost, although throughout his career, in the beginning and the middle, and probably is going to go out with a loss, but he's a great fighter. So stop trying to undervalue the fight because you don't want to see Loma get knocked out.
I didn't say Loma wasn't a great fighter. I said that he's older now than he used to be, and that's just the fact. I said that Gervonta Davis has been putting off a fight with him for 6 or 7 years now, as of 2017. That's another fact.
You could have had this fight a long time ago, and what you're trying to do now is talk up Vasyl Lomachenko preemptively so that he can all of a sudden seem like he's in his prime at 36, going on 37.
Are you stupid?
You're goddamn right I'm gonna undervalue the fight, because the fight isn't now what it could have been in 2019.
When Gervonta Davis first moved up to the lightweight division and Vasyl Lomachenko was already there, reigning as a champion?
Why didn't he fight him then? I mean, if you're talking to him now, and he's still with Top Rank, then why didn't you make the fight with him then? Why didn't you make the fight with him before? We all know why. Because it was too risky then. It's not as risky now that he's lost 1 or 2 more fights, and he's several years older and slower.
Coward.
Your idol is a fucking... This is one of the more brazen attempts to age out a fighter that I've ever seen. And they want me and you to think of this guy as being of the same ilk as a Roberto Duran, arguably the best lightweight that ever lived.
Gervonta ain't cut from the same cloth.
You think a piece of shit, a pussy like Gervonta Davis would ever make his way to welterweight to take on the #1 welterweight at the time an unbeaten Sugar Ray Leonard? Because that's what Roberto Duran did. Do you think Gervonta will ever do that?
Would ever do that?
Of course not. He's a fucking pussy. His fans know he's a fucking pussy because they're a bunch of fucking pussies.
Bitch.
You know, a fucking hoe like Gervonta Davis would never do something like that. For God's sakes, he had to stick weight stipulations on Ryan Garcia. Do you think he'd ever go up to welterweight?
For the number one welterweight.
So then why do they stick up for him and why do they cape for him so hard? Because they see themselves in him. Their degeneracy is his degeneracy. Their cowardice.
Bitch ass.
He's the Cinderella story for every snot-nosed punk.
Puss.
Piece of shit waiting for their fairy godmother, Floyd Mayweather, come scoop them out of the streets.
Save them.
When if this guy were who people say he is, they would have never had to shield him, protect him from Vasyl Lomachenko for 6 or 7 years. That if Floyd Mayweather believed in Gervonta as much as Top Rank believed in Teofimo Lopez, well, Lopez wouldn't have got to him first. Gervonta would have got to him.
But he didn't.
So now that he's lost a couple of more fights and he's several years older than he used to be when this initially started off as a conversation,
The least you can do is fight him. When he's 36 going on 37, the least you can do is fight him because everybody else has.
the least you can do is fight him, open up as a favorite over him because you're supposed to at this point. That's the least you can do, the bare minimum.
You don't get cool points for that.
And you better beat him. You better damn well better knock him out.
Because if you don't,
Just makes you look like that much more of a fraud.
quote unquote tank.
And finally, Bob Arum has said he would be open to making Teofimo Lopez versus Devin Haney next for Lopez's WBO title if Haney opts to vacate his WBC instead of fighting Sandor Martin.
What do you guys feel about that?
That Devin Haney can be fast-tracked to a super fight and a shot at another belt, even though he's already got one, if he gives his to Sandor and fights Teofimo for his. We know that for some years now, we've wanted to see Devin Haney and Teofimo shoot the shits. But was it under these circumstances? When Devin is coming off a loss, a demoralizing loss to Ryan Garcia, who he was so widely favored to beat.
Yeah, but you have to factor in Ryan blowing the weight and testing positive for Osterin.
Not necessarily. Not when you are evaluating Devin Haney's psyche going straight into a Teofimo Lopez fight, because if he vacates his WBC title, skips out on Sandor, and fights Teofimo straight away, what you have to evaluate is where Devin's head is at. How is he feeling right now? Is he riding high? Is he confident?
And do you like his chances?
I have always favored Devin Haney to win this fight up until this point. But these current circumstances do lessen his chances. If he goes from suffering what he suffered at the hands of Ryan straight into a fight with Teofimo, no tune-up in between.
That lessens his chances.
If they made it, I'd watch it. Make no mistake. If they made this fight under these circumstances and build it as a pay-per-view, then I would buy it, as I do still think it's box office worthy. Teofimo versus Devin.
It's intriguing.
Somewhere in between what is a 3-star fight and a 4-star fight. For me, that's where it falls.
Why?
The stylistic matchup is what the stylistic matchup is. And more often than not, pure boxers, outside fighters, and movers like Devin Haney give boxer punchers and counter punchers like Teofimo Lopez fits. And we've seen shades of that over the years. In Teofimo's fight with Sandor Martin, his more recent fight with Jermaine Ortiz.
That style don't do him no favors.
Why?
It's because he's a counterpuncher. At his very best, Teofimo is a counterpuncher, and he's at his best. Hanging back, setting traps, waiting to catch his opponent in between the shots to then move forward. But with Devin, that's going to be hard to do because the guy barely throws, and most of what he throws are jabs.
Single jabs, one at a time.
You say that? Well, Ryan Garcia didn't have no problem catching Devin, but Ryan Garcia's taller than Devin. Teofimo isn't. Ryan Garcia's tall enough that he can walk Devin into a shot as Devin's coming forward looking to close distance. With Teofimo, Devin would look to keep distance, maintain it, and stay behind the jab, not step into it.
We've already seen this stylistic matchup with some differences and nuances aside. We've already seen it when Devin fought Regis Prograis. How Devin fought Regis is how he tried to fight Teofimo. The question, and what makes it interesting, is whether or not Teofimo can do better than Regis did.
And if he can do better, how much better?
Enough that he can win it, because the fight with Devin and the fight with Regis, it was lopsided. Devin won it wide. Now, Perhaps Teofimo can make things a bit more competitive than Regis did. Yeah, maybe he can, because he's fresher and younger, faster.
Yeah.
But can he win it? That's the question. I've noticed what Teofimo's Achilles heel is. When the guy draws him out, when the guy forces him to come forward, like George Kambosos did, walking him into counters, and Sandor Martin, and more recently, Jermaine Ortiz. That's Teofimo's weakness, when he has to stalk his prey.
He's not as crafty, not as good coming forward as he is hanging back.
And Devin? What's Devin's Achilles heel?
He can't punch. He can't punch, and he can't take a punch.
That if Teofimo Lopez can get through with a hard shot, he might do a lot of damage, though let's not overstate it, because Devin Haney actually absorbed a lot of left hooks from Ryan Garcia, but you know what?
What?
He picked himself up every single time.
It's not like Ryan knocked him out. Ryan didn't knock him out.
So while Devin Haney maybe doesn't take the best punch, can Teofimo land, and can he land often enough to finish him, to take him out?
I still like this fight.
But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Just because Bob Arum made a suggestion, that's all it was. It was a suggestion. We don't know that Devin would take him up on his offer under these circumstances. Coming from what he came from with Ryan, is he willing to fight Teofimo straight away?
You know that he could use that Sandor Martin fight as a tune-up fight? Tune-up fight to get himself back in the winner's bracket.
I think he can beat Sandor, and even though the money isn't great, it's a segue to better money for what is a bigger fight, a Lopez fight, a Lopez pay-per-view.
You settle up with Sandor, let Teofimo take care of Steve Claggett, you both win, you fight each other.
Seems a solid enough plan, solid enough sequence of fights, though if I'm still wrestling with the idea that this might happen this way, curbing my enthusiasm, it's because these two kids got two big egos. They both want the moon and the stars. So could you get them to agree on a number?
Remember that they're not exactly on equal footing in this scenario. Teofimo is the champion. Devin is the challenger.
Devin, who's expecting well in excess of $1 million, $2 million to fight the likes of a Sandor Martin. If that's what he wants for a Sandor, what would he want for a Teofimo? And would that be a number that Top Rank is willing to deliver, whatever that number is?
Sounds like there's a separate battle to be fought before the fighters actually throw a punch.
It's something to explore for Devin Haney, because he needs to redeem himself in a big way, but these are less than ideal circumstances for him.
We'll see if he bites.